Intro music. Oh. Here we go, guys. In the Room podcast. Who's calling right now? Someone else calling me? I cannot believe you would call me right now. Somebody's calling me as soon as I went live, fellas. I cannot believe it. That's probably why I lost connection with you guys. Give me 1 second.
Don't they know podcast etiquette?
Yeah, I'm going to run outside. You guys say hello to the fans and the fighters, everyone watching right now, because we got a few people on. Say hello, guys. I'll be right back because I got to go let in my secretary. Hey,
What's
guys,
going
talk.
on, New England? What's going on out there? So I guess tonight we're going to talk about some news that we may have not been able to talk about last week because it's pretty fresh. We're going to talk about the amateur rankings from NewEnglandMMA.org. I think it's a pretty good show. We've got some pretty good feedback from other media organizations, if you will, about our rankings. Ryan Jarrell has talked about it on his podcast, and a couple other people talking about other podcasts, so that's super cool, so we appreciate that.
I'm back,
Steve,
fellas.
you back?
Yeah, I'm back, fellas. It was a false alarm. Yeah, someone was calling me on Messenger, and they were killing my call. So anyway, guys, we're a little late tonight, but it's okay because more people, I think, are on than usual because we are coming on a little later. And tonight we're going to talk mostly about the amateur rankings because last week we talked mostly about the pro rankings that we released. But before we talk about that, there was a couple little tidbits that happened online today, this week, as far as matchups. And I think our rankings had a lot to do with some of that chatter that was going on. So, Lars, there was a big to do with Bruce Boynton and Matt Bessette, and you were really high on that fight, talking about getting that going. CES had a podcast with both of them guys on. I did not watch the podcast, but did you guys watch the podcast, and what did you get out of it as far as that fight, if it's happening or not?
Hey, Travis, go ahead.
I just got out of it that Bruce Boynton needs to get better cell phone service. That was one thing I definitely no, he broke up a little bit, but it was actually cool to watch guys actually give themselves personas and talk. I mean, they'll tell you all day that they're being real about this. I'd love to see the fight happen. I mean, I feel like there's been enough publicity around the event that there's no question that CES would make money, Bruce would make money, Matt would make money, and we'd all be happier for it.
Yeah, I think it's probably the most likely matchup to happen in New England right now, if they can come to terms. Just obviously Bruce being the former 145 champ at CS, Bessette being the current. Bruce never technically lost his belt. So it'd be an interesting matchup. I think it's what we all want to see. And, Bruce is getting a little older, so I think now's the time to make the match. I'm not sure how many more fights he's got left, but I think he's like 41 years old, something like that. So he's getting up there.
So, I was kind of, when we were talking about them last week, I was more interested in maybe Matt fighting a big name out of state or a young up and coming, young stud around here in the top of the rankings. But now that, you're talking a little, I've heard what they had a little say online. I would like to see this fight, even though Matt is demanding a couple of things out of Bruce as far as getting a quality win before he lets him go after that title again. But like you said, Lars, Bruce didn't lose the title. He gave the title up, and his loss was at 155 pounds, which was against Manny Bermudez, which, come on, guys. If Manny was fighting here, he would probably be number one if he had a fight at, at featherweight when he came back on the regional scene. So, I mean, the fight does make sense to me, I think, as far as that factor with them two guys. I mean, it's a money fight for both of them. I mean, depending on where it happens. I don't think Bruce sells a hell of a lot of tickets in as far as in Connecticut, if it was happening there. In even in Twin Rivers, I don't see him taking a hell of a lot of people unless it might be his last fight. He might take a couple of busloads. But as far as Matt, anywhere Matt fights, as far as Providence and the Connecticut, Western Mass area, he's going to pack that place. So he's going to make money. Matt's going to make money. So I see he wants a quality opponent, but I think he's playing with Bruce a little bit here. Hello?
Yeah, I definitely think he's playing with Bruce a little bit here too. I mean, it's great to have this conversation back and forth that we can talk about this, and it has to do with number 1 and number 2 in our ranking. It's just these guys have been talking to each other for a long time about this. This isn't something that we just made up with our rankings. This is a little bit of a beef that goes back a little while. And whoa, where did Lars go?
It's all right. We're interchangeable here.
No, and so I just think it's the matchup to make. Neither of these guys have lost the belt at CES. This is, I mean, I would really like Matt to let this fight happen. I don't think either of these guys have anything to lose from taking this fight. Honestly, it's something that we've all wanted to see. It's 1 versus 2. It's Maine's finest versus, south of Boston's finest. It's just one of those things. It's needs to happen, and I hope they'll give it to us. Excellent.
Well, let's move on to the big guns before we get to the amateurs. There was some calling out and some accepting of the challenge and the fight. We're talking about Raz Hilton and Tyler King. Guys, I didn't know anything about a backstory here with these guys. Did you know anything about this, Travis? That's your neck of the woods. You know Raz. Him and Chris are really good friends now. Talk about what you know and what's going on with that.
I don't know. Raz and Tyler have talked about fighting for a long time. It was one of those things where I think they always thought that their paths would cross. I mean, 2 6'7" heavyweights coming out of the same region, both on the pro scene. That just seems like a logical matchup to begin with. So I know Chris thought that Tyler was a little disrespectful towards Raz at Premier before their fight against Terrence Jean Jacques. And I don't know. It's been one of those things that Raz has talked about. He's kind of had Tyler's name circled for the past couple months since he fought at Premier. And I mean, really, maybe longer. But I know Raz's end, they've been talking about this, and this is the fight that they want. They think that there's a little bit of disrespect behind Tyler's chatter online, and Raz is one of those true martial artists that has respect for all people until you give him reason not to. And I think Raz has a reason not to at this point because of some of the stuff that happened behind the scenes at Premier.
Well, let's get to Tyler. I mean, Tyler has a lot to say on a lot of things, a lot of posts. He's chiming in on all sorts of categories. But now, fighting is open and he's looking to fight. I mean, as far as Tyler, I mean, when was his last MMA fight? Was it overseas? Was it for Ryzen, or when was his last fight?
I think. Yeah, Lars might know. I think it hasn't been recent. It's something that you see him doing a lot of BJJ tournaments and stuff like that, grappling tournaments. But since his last MMA fight, I think it was the overseas.
Yeah, it was his Ryzen fight. When was that? Oh, I'm looking it up right now. That was back. So he last fought in May, in an MMA bout.
In May of
So
2019.
that was actually 2019 Unified MMA 37, whatever the hell that is. The Ryzen fight was actually back in 2017.
Okay.
So it's been a little while since that fight. But I remember at Premier FC seeing, we were all cage side, I think it was Premier FC 30. And after the fight, Tyler King made some sort of motion towards Raz. Chris Saros saw the corner of his eye and made a point to go up and confront Tyler about it and kind of, hey, show some respect. I think that's where a lot of it's stemming from.
Yep.
But it seemed like Tyler was almost trying to set up this fight back then with some of what he was doing cage side. So I'd like to see it happen.
Do you think Tyler's overlooking Raz and just thinking I'm picking Raz and picking on him and calling him out because he thinks he can get an easy win over him to get back in the game, or is this something that he thinks is a challenge? What do you think?
I think Tyler is overlooking Raz. I've seen Raz in the gym the past couple months, striking with people. He's been staying active. He and Chris have worked together hand in hand, day to day, for weeks during the quarantine. Chris is actually staying at Raz's house this next week. They are hanging out next weekend with Jorgen De Castro and Nick Gulliver. These guys have kind of formed a little tight-knit group of heavyweights, and they're definitely feeding off each other. Chris is trying to bring out the killer instinct that we've always hoped that Raz would have eventually. I think with Raz, he respects the opponent so much that sometimes he didn't have that killer instinct to turn it on. And I think he changed that in the Brad Lee fight. And I think you would definitely have seen a different Raz with Brad Lee and having Chris in his corner. Chris got him really pumped up for that fight. So
Excellent.
Yeah, it's one of those matchups where, two big guys going at it. You think it's going to be a slugfest. Whose chin holds up? They've been knocked out a few times. So whose chin can hold up? Does it turn into a grappling fest where they grind it out? You see those heavyweight bouts where you expect a slugfest, and all of a sudden it plays out for 15 minutes on the mat. So regardless, there's definitely some momentum behind it, and somebody's going to make it, but not sure where. I know Premier would like to have it, but I'm not sure if Tyler and Karen see eye to eye.
No. If you're looking at the post, I mean, it's fun to watch the comments go back and forth and get back into that game and the chatter again, because there was a lot of good stuff going back and forth. And, as far as the chatter going forward, we know Tyler's going to come heavy at Raz, and Raz is going to stay as a gentleman as always and stick to business and do his talking in the cage, where I'm hoping that it's around September when Neff comes around. I mean, you want to fight Raz, go up to his home and fight him on his home turf in a big event for Neff,
Hey, here's the thing I think about when it comes to all these different states and how they're kind of rolling out and putting the things up differently. Who knows if Maine will let fights happen in September? I get a feeling that they might not. Rhode Island, I'm not sure how CES is handling it down there. I think the one state that will probably open up the quickest would probably be New Hampshire. Does that mean some of these promotions start flocking to New Hampshire just to put shows on? I don't know, but who knows where it happens? It might be happening in the only state in New England that opens up and allows crowds of over, 500 or whatnot.
Well, guys.
Yeah, I think Pat mentioned that on the CES podcast last night, that they would look into whatever state would allow them to promote first, if they wanted to roll out a card as soon as possible. And he actually specifically mentioned if New Hampshire being one of the first, that they would look into promoting in New Hampshire.
Excellent.
Nice.
Well, we got two big, huge fights to talk about when, the fights and the cards start rolling. So, guys, tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the amateurs, because last week we concentrated a lot on the pros. We didn't get to everything. I mean, there's a lot of people to cover, a lot of rankings, a lot of divisions. But we got to most of them. I mean, if we, at the end of the show, you guys want to recap something we didn't talk about on the pros, we could do that. But let's try to get through the rankings in as much as we can as far as them. Guys, I have a bunch of posters locked and loaded as far as which guy, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to hit first? What division you want to hit first in the amateurs and talk about them?
Yes, Travis, why don't you pick the first one?
I think we should go with the flyweights. I mean, it's an interesting division, and I had some disagreements with some of the rankings, I guess. I think some people should be ranked higher, so I think we should talk about the flyweights.
All right, so I got that up right now. Let me just blow that up a little bit here. I can get it. You don't need to see all me. There we go. So, a lot of excitement. Lars, I just got to congratulate you one more time on the great write-ups you've been doing, the posters you've been putting up, and just really putting the emphasis on each division and the top 10 in there. Great write-up. If you want to see it, go to newenglandmma.org, and Lars is right up on all the divisions there. I think you got them just about all covered in the pro. I mean, there's still heavyweight, I do believe. And then you're going to start hitting the amateurs, which we're talking about tonight.
Yeah, we'll release the heavyweights tomorrow, and then we're just going to keep doing one weight class a day until we run out of them. Gives us something to talk about. The write-ups are fun. It kind of have you do a little bit of research and figure out what's going on, but I think it's content, and people are reading it, so we're happy for that. But it's I think this is something we'll probably do as we release new rankings. Just a short write-up in each weight division. One a day, something like that. So it's fun.
Excellent. All right, well, here we go. As we know, Nate Russell from FAA, Tyler Randall. I'm not going to go through all. I mean, I don't have to read them all. But, guys, what's your take on this? And, Travis, you talked about how there was a little talk about here that maybe somebody should be ranked above someone else. Talk about some of the feedback you got, and let's go through it.
I don't know. This may just be my love for Cage Titans coming out, but I think Joe Poirier should be ranked number 3 over Caleb Austin in this. I am so high on that kid. The kid looks like a built 170-pounder at flyweight, which is absolutely mind-blowing. I don't know how the kid gets down to 125, but I don't see anyone in 125 out physical, being more physical than him, being bigger, being stronger. I just don't see it happening. And to be an amateur with that much size on the rest of your weight class, I think is a huge thing. He's shown some pretty good upstart, and I'm worried about the rest of the flyweight division when it comes to that guy.
Well, he was set to fight Dave DeReo for the amateur flyweight, which DeReo was supposed to fight Jake Bagley, and Bagley got hurt, and then DeReo was scheduled to fight Poirier, and then DeReo got hurt, and then the shit hit the fan with the fucking coronavirus. So everybody kind of got out of everything from fighting for that title. You're saying Poirier should be third. He's only 2-0. I think that could be what made him, maybe held him up. And I was going to say before you even mentioned his name that he's 2-0 and he's ranked 4th, which is pretty remarkable.
It's a good ranking for him, but it's so weird. It would be like putting GSP in the bantamweight division. Like, it's just what it looks like to me, just from what I've seen of him standing in the cage at Cage Titans. He is a big dude at flyweight, and if he can even come close to his athletic potential, he's probably going to be one of the top guys in the next couple months.
Now, the Khalib Austin, I do believe the last fight he had was for Neff, the last card before the last card, basically before the premiere card. Khalib, I saw his fight. I was cage side. Kid's a gamer. Is this the same kid that had the controversial finish?
Yes.
All right. So,
So yeah, he tapped out to James Ploss at NEF, and I believe John English was the ref, and John was more concentrated on face of Caleb Borssen than the actual hand tapping, and he tapped and got out of the choke. I believe it was a triangle, and ended up winning the fight. That fight has been rematched, or supposedly going to be rematched for September when they come back. That's something that a lot of people want to see. A lot of people have got on Caleb Boston's case about tapping out and not honorably taking a loss, even at a win. It's just it's hard to say. That's why I would put Joe ahead of him, because in my eyes, Caleb has lost a fight.
All right,
I think.
Go ahead, Lars.
I think when I look at the flyweights, one guy that I would say who's got the shot to do something at the next level, I'd circle Joe Poirier. I've seen his 2 fights, cage side, and the kid's a beast. I'm not sure how tall he is, but he's got to be at least 5'8", 5'9". That's big for a 125er. And his striking game is far beyond his 2-0 amateur record. So I look for him to make some moves. And, no telling where he ends up at the end of the year. In terms of Caleb Boston, I'm high on him as well. His game hasn't evolved as much as Poirier's. He's more of kind of a wrestle-first guy and wants to grind it out on the mat. And in his, 4 victories, his opponents going into those fights are a combined record of 0-3. He fought 3 guys in their debut and beat them. One of them was that Ploss fight, quote unquote, beat him. So, Austin's level of competition needs to go up. Poirier, I think, is heading in that direction. And, you can't overlook the top 2, Nate Russell and Tyler Randall. I think Randall kind of has a similar issue where his quality of competition needs to start to fight some better guys in order to get some attention to get up in the number 1 ranking.
Well, there was some. As soon as our rankings came out with the flyweights, there was a lot of discussion with Nate Russell and Tyler. They were going at it. Not any disrespectful or anything. They were just they were thought, hey, let's 1 and 2, let's go at it. Now, Tyler, I don't know much about him. Did he relocate? Is he a New Englander native? Tell me a little bit about him. And I don't know much about him at all.
He's from Florida.
Yeah, I think he moved to Vermont recently. I don't know too much about him either. I haven't seen any of his fights live. He's obviously got a good record. Seems like he has some solid training down in Florida, and now he's predominantly fighting, I think, Johnny up in Vermont. But he's another guy, I'd like to see either come over to Maine or to New Hampshire or Mass to get one of those promotions and, fight some nice guys to prove to us what he's got.
Definitely. Well, that's what the rankings are for, is to get these fights going. I got Dave DeReo asking a question. Dave DeReo, as we know, was going to fight Joe Poirier. He's asking what Joe Poirier's opponents' combined records are. I mean, they've only got 1 or 2 fights among them, too. You know what I mean? It's like Dave DeReo's got a few fights. Dave's been around. Dave actually fought Mitch Raposo twice to a decision as an amateur when nobody would fight Mitch. I mean, I got to give him credit. Dave's put on a couple of great performances. One at Cage Titans, which got him the title shot. And I saw him knock someone out at Ammo. And, another fight before that, he had good success. His only downfall was going against Mitch Raposo, really. Talk a little bit about Dave. Dave, I mean, he's a little scrappy dude, but he fights and trains with Matt Bissett. He's out of Team Underdog MMA, and we know they put on a bunch of killers from there. So do you think this is still a fight that is in the making, DeReo and Poirier, or do you think something else might manufacture by the time cards come up?
Ooh, man, I don't know. That's a tough one there. I still would like to see. I think a better looking fight would be Bagley against David. The original matchup, I was pretty excited about myself. A wrestler against a grappling submission type dude. I thought that had all the makings of being a great fight when that was first announced. So, I mean, if Joe was going to step up and take on David, that's cool and whatever. And I know that I get it. The record isn't, or the opponent's combined record isn't something. I just look at Joe and I see his physical attributes, and I don't know. I'm pretty high on him. It's just hard to not be high on somebody with the physical appearance that he has at the weight that he fights at. But Dave, I know it's one of those things where he's become a veteran. Dave has, and he can fight any of these guys. He could beat any of these guys on any given day. So he has the right to kind of argue a little bit about his position on this list too, because he's been around. He's taken all the tough fights in New England.
Excellent. I had Poirier in here with a few of his training partners. Great kid, very confident, very confident. And he's a killer, like you said. That kid. I mean, he's still growing too, and to be able to get to that weight and be that size and that tall, man, that's someone to reckon with in the future there. So, anyone else you want to talk about on here? Nate Russell, of course, is number one. Anyone else on here as far as you want to discuss, or you want to move on?
I just want to say one thing real quick. I know that we talked briefly about the rookie Randall and Nate Russell fight, but rookie also really has some interest in fighting Mr. Hamburglar Cormier.
Really?
So, he'd like to fight the Hamburglar.
Dan Cormier's watching on Instagram Live right now, so he might have heard that. Dan Cormier.
Yeah, he has an interest in turning pro and fighting Dan.
Is that right? Dan, we'll be talking. I'll be sending you a message. I don't know if he's still on Instagram, but that's nice to know. Travis with the beans. Travis with the beans. All right, next. You want to just go up the weight classes here? You want to go to bantamweight?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Let's see what we got. Let me move that over. It's where I need an engineer in the studio with me, even though I like doing this stuff. Guys, did I tell you my new computer is fabulous? Did I tell you my new computer? Even though I did lose you, I don't know how I know how I lost you. Somebody was calling me on Messenger while I have you on Messenger, which screws me all up. Watch everyone call my fucking Messenger now. All right. So do I have it up? Let me see. I got to see it on the screen. There we go. All right. Jeff Joy, number 1. Cam Arnold, number 2. Arthur Mapufu, number 3. Tyler Randall, number 4. And Shane Doherty, number 5. All. Well, there's at least 2. They're all 3 title holders in there. We got Shane Doherty holds the featherweight title, I think, for Cage Titans. Who else we got in there? Cam Arnold owns the bantamweight for Neff, is that? And does he own another one too? Does he own 2 or just 1 for them?
No, he owns just 1.
And Jeff Joy owns. And Jeff Joy owns the bantamweight for the amateur bantamweight for Cage Titans. Congratulations, Cage Titans, with some more bling around your amateur fighter's waist here that we're going to be talking about. So, guys, as we know, we were supposed to have Cam Arnold against Arthur Mapofu, and that was the fight to make. They both fought Jeff Joy. They both lost to Jeff Joy. And that was the fight to make. We were looking forward to Cam Arnold coming back to Cage Titans with his Maniacs. So let's talk about this weight class, guys. Is this exactly where you think the weight class should be?
Yeah, I think this actually, this top 3 comes out kind of exactly how I had them. Obviously, Jeff Joy was about to go pro, I think, at the last Cage Titan event. But obviously, since that fight didn't happen, we felt like it didn't make any sense to bump him up to the pro division yet. So by default, he's the number 1 guy there, but probably won't be for too much longer once he breaks into the pro ranks. Cam Arnold is a killer. We've seen 1 and 2 fight. It was a great fight. Pofu is a stud. So I like those 3 there. There's really not much argument, honestly, to go around there.
I agree.
Shane Doherty. See, I just knew him as a as a featherweight. Do you know what's his activity as a bantamweight? I mean, he's only got fucking 4 fights. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm looking up his recent fights. If I remember correctly, he had a bantamweight fight, maybe his second fight, and then the rest been featherweight. So he's still qualified in the division. But
Yeah. So what's going to happen? I mean, I want to just let other people out because there's some fighters that just made the rankings with the length of time, like the criteria with the amount of time they have to fight within, and some of these fighters in their weight class. I mean, if they haven't fought in the weight class in a certain amount of time, I mean, they're not going to be eligible to be ranked in that. So the next time we have rankings, I'm going to see. I mean, some of these fighters are going to fall off as far as for inactivity or just not fighting in their weight class. So things are going to change down the line. And like we said, when we first put these out, I mean, they're the first one. So things are going to be changed down the line, and this is a work in progress. So as far as, who's that? I can't see it. Lucy. Who is Lucy?
You tell us.
Is that like I don't know who John Lucy is. Do we know how John Lucy is? See that
he's on the right. Yeah. So back to Doherty for 1 second. So I just checked he's had 3 fights at featherweight. His first, third, and fourth. His second fight was at bantamweight. That bantamweight fight was almost 2 years ago. So he's going to fall out of that weight class soon. And honestly, he's a big kid. I don't know if he can make bantamweight moving forward. So I think featherweight's his home. But he's a stud. We'll talk about him when we get to that next division.
Excellent. Well, I mean, we got stuff. I mean, this is our future right here. I mean, Jeff Joy, Cam Arnold, Arthur Mapufu, Tyler Randall, Shane Doherty. I mean, they're all studs. They're all young, and they're all finishers. I mean, they finish. I mean, Arthur's been to decisions, but that's just because he's fighting the top guys. I mean, he's fighting Jeff Joy and Cam Arnold. I mean, well, he hasn't fought Cam Arnold yet. I don't know about that fight. I mean, do you think? Here we go again. Do you think that's a fight that is the next one to make? Is it Cam Arnold against Arthur? Is that the fight set in stone? Is that the one that should be made next, regardless of any other activity or any other names that popped up on this division?
I think so. They're already scheduled to fight. I think that fight makes a lot of sense in a lot of different ways. Cam Arnold always brings heavy hands, always an exciting fight. And same with Mpofu as well. Like he's fun to watch. So those two guys banging it out in the middle. I think that's a fight where Cam keeps it standing. He's got a chance to knock out Arthur. If Arthur doesn't want to play the stand-up game with Cam, if he can get it to the ground, that's where his best chance at winning that fight is. It's his best path to victory.
Anything from you before we go to the next division there, Travis?
I agree with Lars. You don't want to stand and bang with Cam Arnold.
Excellent. All right. And as we know, when he did fight Jeff Joy, Jeff did get clipped by him. So, and Jeff talks about the power and stuff. So you can't stand there with Cam unless, you're willing to take some damage. All right, so let me get to the next.
Yeah, I actually talked to Cam after he fought and knocked out Walt Shea, and I watched a cage side with Chris Sorrow, and we know that Chris has the red right hand, and we were talking about that left hand that hit Walt Shea that night was pretty impressive from that side.
Awesome. All right.
That was a scary knockout. That was if you haven't seen that one, go watch it. That's kind of a rigor mortis knockout that you go, oh shit, is he okay? He was fine, but it shows you the power that Cam possesses. Cam's got a ton of talent. I think as his fight IQ improves, he's going to improve immensely because he knows what his skill set is, and he's going to be very smart against who he fights and where that fight goes. Honestly, I don't know too much about Cam Arnold's ground game. That's one thing I haven't seen that much of. So until he shows us some chops on the mat, he's a heavy-handed striker that's dangerous to anybody. But somebody that can wrestle and drag him to the mat like Jeff Joy did. Is that the recipe to beat Cam Arnold?
Well, it very well could be, because his toughest title defense in NEF was against Killian Murphy from Nostos, who took him into round 3 before he got TKO'd. And Killian's a wrestler, heavy wrestling first type dude. So that's definitely if you're gonna beat Cam Arnold, you got to get past the hands, close the distance, and drag him into deep water. And still, Cam can fight out of deep water too. That's the tough part.
Awesome. All right, so let's get to the featherweights. Let me blow that up because I'm blind. And there we go. So, Tom Pags. Who? I must say, you posted today, and I posted today that Calvin Keita is fighting. He's actually headlining the July 15th card. What is that? Wait, what is you giving that away?
This is just a shameless plug. I saw that Chris popped on in the conversation on the live feeds.
Oh,
so
there he is.
To give up some
There's
gold.
Chris. Chris has a date too, right? Chris has he has a date now.
Yes, he does.
Excellent. Well,
July 24th, BKFC 11.
excellent. Where's that
Tampa,
take?
Florida.
It's in Florida. So
South Florida.
road trip, guys. Road trip.
I'm in.
Look at the look.
Get some
We can get
credentials.
media passes.
All right,
We can get media pass.
All right, we'll talk about this offline on Messenger.
Yeah, offline, so my wife doesn't watch.
We can only fit 3 in the car. All right, so Tom Pags, who is a Tyson Chadier guy. He is a killer. He's a main training partner of Calvin. He does a lot. He trains at Burgess, goes to Lausanne's a lot, and he's a dangerous fighter. What are you thinking about this weight class? Because I see nothing but killers here. And there's one name on here that I want to talk about that we'll talk about after we, go down the list or whatever. But, fellas, what are you thinking about the featherweight division in New England for amateurs?
It's
I
deep,
mean, if
man.
this is it,
What's that?
Yeah, it's deep. This is a seriously deep division. Pags has improved immensely over the past few years since I've seen him fight. He's training with the right guys. He's one of those guys where he's got a wrestling base, but his hands have evolved pretty quickly in the amateur ranks, and he's beaten some guys standing up. And I think he's one of those guys where he's getting that confidence because he's training with these killers, and that confidence is translating in the cage. He's another guy, just like Joe Poirier, the same body type, big, lean, he's got a serious reach, and he's well-rounded. He's a guy to keep your eye on. I would hope to see him go pro soon and start working his way up. But he's got a shot, to get to that next level if he keeps on the progressive track that he's on right now. So he's a killer. And then number 2, Shane Doherty. I mean, he's a stud. I don't want to see Pags and Doherty fight. I think it's one of those things where you don't want to have the top guys in New England continuously beating each other up, because then maybe you don't get to that next level because you got a couple losses on your record that are against some stiff competition. So I'd like to see. I at least don't want to see Pags and Doherty fight in the amateur ranks. If they're gonna fight, wait to the pro ranks so we can see some elbows maybe. And but yeah, and you can't overlook York Anderson, who had a pretty impressive performance against number 4 Zach Richard at Premier FC 30, and he took home their featherweight belt back in late February, early March. So those top 4 are studs, but I see a pretty big gap between 2 and 3. 1 and 2 are right neck and neck in my opinion. 2 and 3, there's a little bit of a gap.
Guys, the name that I want to bring up is this Dylan. How do you say his last name? Fellion. This a lot of talk about this kid. This kid is ranked number 1 on Tapology. and been ranked number one for a while. I don't know much about him. Is this a Vermont fighter? Where is he from? And has he fought the caliber fighters that like Tom Pags or Zach Richards or Tyrone De Silva has fought? Let's talk about this kid because I heard his name a lot and I looked him up, and he's a tall, lanky kid, and he seems like he's got a pretty good submission game, and that's what he falls back on. Talk about him, Travis, because he seems to be up north, and you might have judged one of his fights over there, Lars. So talk about this guy. Anything you know about him?
This is a tough one. I expect him to fall straight out of the featherweight rankings once the rankings come out again. He was supposed to fight at Fight Night Promotions this coming weekend in a Muay Thai bout at 180 pounds. So I'm not thinking he's going to be making it back down to featherweight anytime soon. He is a tall, lanky kid, I believe, over 6 feet tall for a featherweight, pretty tall. But yeah, you're right about his submission game. He likes to throw up a lot of submissions. That's where he's had. That's been his bread and butter. But I don't know. I don't see him coming back down to featherweight. I think a fight to make here would be Pags against Yorick, because that's a kind of a clash of styles. Yorick's got some nice stand-up, some moves well on his feet, forward and backwards, and strikes well going at all angles. He really showed good takedown defense against Zach in his fight against Zach. And Pags is a heavy wrestler, but he also trains on the feet with Rob Font, so his hands are getting pretty good, as Lars had mentioned.
Yeah, Yorick was outstanding at Premiere. He looked crisp. He looked great. He reminded me of a smaller Mike Bazanson. If that's how I might have said his wrong. Sorry, Mike. But he had that. He has
red hair.
He has that. No, just his style. He had a flash. He had a real good, almost like. It seemed like he had like a sports karate kind of background. The way he was standing and the way his striking was. Threw a lot of kicks in there and a lot of a lot of spin stuff, I must say.
Yeah, he and Zach had fun in there that night. They both throw some spin and shit. Zach's in there to throw down. Yorick was definitely going to return the favor. That was a good fight. I mean, there was some stalling points where Zach went for takedowns, went for single legs, went real deep on him that stalled a little bit. When that fight was on the feet and the grappling game up against the cage and stuff like that, that was a great fight to watch technically.
And
yeah, I don't know a ton about Yorick, but I did see that fight, and he looked like he was in great condition. He trains with UG, who's the number 3 ranked pro middleweight down at Radical MMA in Manhattan. But he's will he continue to fight in New England? He's got the premier belt now, so I hope so. A couple other guys on the list that I think we should mention are number 6 and number 7, Dan Shapiro, 3-0 from Lausanne MMA, and Tyrone De Silva. He's 2-0. Both those guys have been impressive early on in their careers in the cage, and they got an opportunity to. I don't know too much about Dylan Felion, but those two guys, 6 and 7, you could easily see them in the top 3 or 4, within the next 6 to 12 months.
Excellent. Adam Bondarenko, he actually had a win over Mike Murray at Neff, that last Neff there. Very impressive. Very, very dangerous ground game on this guy. Strong kid. Trains with Manny Bermudez. He's out of South Shore. I see him making some waves too. I see him coming up. And Randy Francis is a gamer. Randy Francis is a journeyman amateur fighter who throws down. He gets in there. I love Randy Francis as a kid, as just a dude on social media. Very funny guy. And he gets in there and he just throws down. I mean, the kid's a really good fighter. And someone like that, man, his record's not impressive, but he's nitty gritty and he gets in there and he bangs. So someone like that might jump to the pros down the line in early 2021's a dangerous kid, even though that his amateur record doesn't show it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, your amateur record doesn't carry over into the pro ranks. So who the hell cares, right? When I think of the amateurs, what you should be doing down there, you got to be honing your skills. You want to fight quality competition, but you don't want to take a beating. You don't want to care on your body at the amateur ranks. So I think, Francis is one of those guys who'll never say no to a fight. And when you get to the pro ranks, you kind of got to be more strategic about who you say yes and no to if you're trying to get to that next level and protect your record. So I always love those guys who will never say no to a fight. But, this list is deep, man. The top two guys, I wouldn't be surprised if we see them under the big lights in the next 3 or 4 years if they continue on, the track they're in. I think Doherty trains out of, where's he, US MMA?
Yeah.
I think he's down there. And obviously Pags has got a great camp too. So Zach Richard, he's a guy who's got a lot of amateur fights under his belt as well. He should probably think about making the jump to actually get paid to get, to get in a fight. So he's a kid that has got a ton of heart. He comes from a solid camp. You need to see his striking evolve more for him to have success against upper tier competition in the pro ranks. He's got a very good top heavy wrestling game. I haven't seen much in the way of submissions, but he's got to his striking game needs to evolve in order for him to to want to get to that major promotion type of level.
Excellent. I want to congratulate Tom Pags and Shane Doherty. They did graduate college this year, both on their way to the professional ranks out of the cage also. So congratulations to them, and proud of you guys. So go get it. Anyone else you want to talk there? Tyrene De Silva, of course, out of Triforce. Guillotines, two of his 2 wins, and they were both against the identical twins and the Leighton twins there, which is a great story there. And now they train a little bit together because Tyrene does go to Lausanne's, and I love how that works out, man. You fight someone and then you go and train with them and get each other better.
That's what it's all about. That's the glue that's holding Chris and Rass's relationship together. Chris goes out and knocks Rass out, and now they're hanging out together on a weekly basis. That's one of the best things about the sport.
Excellent. Well, let's get to the lightweights because I guess we're halfway through it. So let's get to them. There's so many. I forget who's on what list. And all right. Oh, another set of killers. All right, so. Oh, I heard myself over here too. All right, guys. So who do we have here? Of course, we have Mo. There he is. Al Kanani. I probably said his name wrong. Who was supposed to fight Dion Rubio at Cage Titans. So many belt fights were supposed to happen at Cage Titans that didn't happen. So Mo was supposed to fight Dion Rubio. Who was his fight against for the title before? Eddie George, who is pro now. So that was an open title, correct?
Should be.
Yeah,
I think so. Vacant title. All right, guys, let's talk about this list. Romano Medina, who did beat Mo at one time. I don't know if it was at lightweight or was it at lightweight or was it at a catchweight?
It was at lightweight.
All right. So that's interesting. I know Romano was ranked number 1 at one time. He might be at Tapology, but I just think it's because Mo has been more active, and Romano hasn't had a fight in a while. I know he had a grappling match, I think, at Combat Zone not too long ago, but as far as MMA, he hasn't been very active.
Yeah, this is one of those things where you're like, how is number 1 ahead of number 2 if number 2 beat number 1? But you when it comes to the rankings, yes, it's about what you've done in the past, but it's also about your potential and what we've seen in the cage from you, and what we think you can do. And Al Kanani has improved immensely since they fought. I think Medina and Al Kanani fought like 2 years ago. Medina beat him by submission. But since then, Al Kanani's been on a tear. He's 3-0 with big wins over John McAndrews and Chris O'Brien. His stand-up game is one of the higher level stand-up games in the amateur ranks that you'll see. He's also proven to be able to deal with deep waters and be able to go into a fight and battle with heart. So kid's got the tools to be successful at the next level. And Medina, he's a stud as well. He's predominantly a grappler. I saw him beat who did he beat recently? But I think I was judging the fight where he beat Al Kanani. That was a hell of a fight. But yeah, he's also, he beat Eddie George via decision. So, those two guys, 1 and 2, I'd love to see a rematch, but I think they're both at the point where they're probably about ready to make that leap to the pro ranks. Al Kanani's up here in Maine, training out Evolution Athletics. He's always fun to watch. Whenever I see Al Kanani on a card, that's a fight I always circle as one that you don't want to go take a piss for. So both these guys, though, two totally different games. Al Kanani's predominantly a striker who wants to knock your head off, where Medina wants to drag it to the ground and submit you. But both guys have a legit chance at some serious success at the next level.
Excellent. Matt Bigna, that was a triple champion there. He lost his belt to his reality belt to Eddie George with that quick TKO. He's been out of the game he's been out of the game a while, but he's building houses. He's a big homeowner. But I did talk to him. I think it might have been the last Cage Titans event. He was at the after party and he talked about getting back in it. He just weighed about 190 pounds at the time. He's living the life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think of him as semi-retired. He's definitely flipping homes and stuff like that, which is cool as hell to watch on his Facebook. But yeah, he's definitely going to be in the conversation after beating Obi at Cage Titans for the title at that time. That was a great fight. Another guy you got to mention in here is Nate the Mule White.
Yeah.
A guy from NEF. He makes it number 4 on this list, and he deserves it. The guy will fight anyone, anywhere. 2 weeks notice. One of the times he fought in NEF, he gets pepper sprayed the day before the fight or the day of the fight. It's just like he's I don't know. I like Nate White. I like his attitude. Definitely a pro-America type dude, and he's get on the mule train. That's all I gotta say.
The mule train. And
looking at the weight class, 5th and 6th, you got Dion Rubio and Chris O'Brien and Zach Richard at 7. When you look at 1 through 10 in their win-loss records, if you take out number 8 Chris Rooney, who's 12 and 7, out of those other 9 fighters, there's not a fighter on there that has more than 2 losses. You got 7 and 1, 5 and 0, 6 and 2, 5 and 0, 4 and 1, 4 and 2, 7 and 2, 3 and 1. So these guys, it's a deep division. A lot of matchups to make here. I see number 1 and number 2 being kind of a special breed that if you say, hey, who are a couple guys on this list that you think could get the call from one of the major promotions, it's in the next 3 or 4 years, those 2 guys are the ones who stick out to me. But regardless, all these guys on this list have legit records. So it's deep.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Shall we move up? Probably running out of time here. Okay, let's get to the welterweights. We're probably not going to be able to go through everything, but as we actually get to the heavyweights and the light heavyweights, we don't know too many because most of them fighters are like from the Vermont and up north eating moose and stuff like that. I mean, these guys are huge.
Potato.
They're huge from up Vermont and stuff.
Yeah, Vermont definitely has the light heavyweight and heavyweight divisions on lock.
Yeah, not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm
yeah.
not talking shit. I'm saying that, we need heavyweights and light heavyweights. Fucking keep breeding them up there. All right, let me get this up. All right, so we have welterweight up here, which I did talk about Mike Bazanson, who is a hell of a kid, a hell of a fighter. What's he? Is he the NEF and the Combat Zone champion, welterweight champion?
Yep. Yeah, he's NEF and Combat Zone 170 champ. Bazanson is probably one of the probably the most exciting fighter to watch in the amateur ranks. I don't think we've seen his ground game tested at all because his stand-up is so effective, and he's been in some wars. And when you talk about spinning shit, he throws some cool spinning shit and kicks from everywhere. He probably has some of the best kicks in New England, regardless of amateur or pro. And I like to see his hands evolve a little bit more. He doesn't throw his hands enough with those kicks, but I think that will come in time. But we haven't seen him, fight a wrestler who can get him to the ground and kind of grind him. So we'll see how that goes. But Bazanson, also the kid's a hell of a skateboarder. I'm not sure if you've seen some of his shit on Facebook, but Jesus Christ, this kid can skateboard too. But the kid's a stud. He trains up in New Hampshire under Greg Williams at Kaze Dojo. He made, we did a little special on him in his fight with Taylor Mears at Combat Zone, which is one of the best amateur fights I've seen in a long time. And, he made a statement to me that he's got 2 belts in 2 different promotions right now. He wouldn't mind going up to 185 and getting another belt in the amateur ranks. So we'll see. But, he's the guy that regardless of what promotion he's fighting for, I'll make sure I'm there to watch it.
Carlton Charles says
Carlton's right. I was gonna correct Lars after this. Duncan is the NEF 170-pound champion. But Bazanson is definitely the Combat Zone champion, and I'm just as high on Bazanson as Lars is. And another guy I'm high on, we saw him at Premier, is Cam Rusniski. Super athletic dude. We won the Premier Championship at 170 pounds against Almastika.
Yes.
And he's a guy that I think is somebody to look forward to. And it's funny because Mo Al-Kanani comes in at 6 here, and I've said this before. I believe, Lars, this will bring back memories for you. I've always wanted to see Bazanson and Mo just exchange some hands. I think that'd be pretty fun.
I think Al only fights at 170 because he can't get any fights at 155. So I think he, that's a heavy weight class for him. So he might, the advantage probably will be Mike, because Mike's a big dude, man. He doesn't, when talking to Mike says he doesn't cut that much weight to get to 170. But when you look at him, he's a solid kid. And I just think, he's going to be the bigger fighter in there. I think Mo's more geared at the lightweight and staying toward there. Another name I want to say on there is, I got to give my buddy there, Dave Sparrow, a shout out, because Dave Sparrow, isn't he the Combat Zone? Isn't he the Combat Zone amateur welterweight champion? Didn't he beat Duncan Smith for that belt?
He beat Duncan Smith for the belt, and then he retired technically. But who's really retired as an amateur fighter? Dave's got a gym. Dave's in there training every day. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. He's obviously getting up there in age, but he's been around Combat Zone. If Combat Zone came knocking, I have trouble thinking that Dave wouldn't go at it again.
Well, that wouldn't be Dave is a grappler by nature, a BJJ guy. So there's your guy that could test Mike with that grappling style if he can get inside and avoid them kicks and them hands, you know what I mean? So that's an interesting fight. I don't know what Mike is looking for. I know he was, he was interested in the Mo fight, but Mo had the Dion fight. You got Duncan Smith in there again. He lost against Sparrow, but he's still a champion at NEF, and he's still a gamer, and he's still a great a great amateur fighter. So there's some potential to go on over there. And that Cameron, when you talked about Cameron, Travis, didn't he throw Chris halfway across the cage?
Yeah, man. He had the foot on the gas pedal the entire time. He was coming for the kill, coming forward, and Chris is a veteran. I think that was like his 9th amateur fight, and only the 3rd, I believe, for Cam. But Cam just out athleticized the dude. Was all over him, and there was not a whole lot that Chris could do to mount any type of offense.
Awesome. You got Nate White again on this list. I know his last fight, I believe, was welterweight, and that was like a late notice fight, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, was that against?
That was against
Costco.
Yes, it was against Costco. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, Nate White's one of those guys. He's got a great record. His quality of opponent isn't that good, and that's probably what's holding him back a little bit. I know NEF's trying to build him up. And I think they've done a good job of that. It's now time for him to step up and start facing some legit competition, and maybe somebody who's ranked on one of these lists. And to circle back on, you know, the Sparrow Bezanson kind of matchup, how that'd be interesting. You know, when I think about it, Bezanson, he seems to be a lot bigger than Sparrow is. You know, Bezanson succeeds when he stays on the outside. He has his distance. He uses his kicks. And he stays at range. And in the combat zone cage itself, it's a lot bigger than, say, like the NEF cage. You know, Bezanson had a little trouble with Jason Landry in the NEF cage, because it's so small and he doesn't have much room to kind of work and escape. So, you know, I think Sparrow's got a much better chance of beating Bezanson than like an NEF cage than a bigger cage like combat zone. So it's something to think about.
Yeah, I was actually having nightmares last night about cages and the sizes of the cages when we started talking about Tyler King and Ras Hilton, thinking that could happen in the mini cage at NEF. Just scared the shit out of me.
The wingspan on them gentlemen.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, guys, we got to move on. Which it's going to be easier now because we don't know a ton of people in these next categories. And what's interesting is in the middleweight, there's a couple of fighters there that are going to be dropping off the rankings. They, you know, 1 or 2 of them are almost over that limit of you know, our criteria in the fight, you know, the fight time there. So let's get to middleweight.
Yeah, this is some of the trouble you run into, these divisions being so light in New England. Not a whole lot coming out of New England north of 170 pounds. So we fall into that, what we talked about last week, where we had the women pound for pound ranked. If we could still continue to do a pound for pound for middleweight through heavyweight amateur, it would be one thing, but you can't really compare guys that are 80 pounds difference on paper, really.
Excellent. All right, so where are we? Where do I got it up there? Here we go, guys. You know, I know like four people on this list. I know Stephen Kimball, who's been doing good work for Cage Titans. Pete Haler, who's only had 1 fight, but he fights out of Lausanne's gym there, and he's got a wrestling background. Very, very, very tough kid. And who else we got here?
Yeah, that was Hyler and Crowley, one of the best fights in Cage Titans history.
Oh, that's right. Kylo, he was a little hurt in that fight, and he came back and took him out. Correct?
Yeah, that was an awesome fight.
You know, I don't know much about Spencer Payne. I've never seen him fight. And then I don't even want to butcher his name, but Ojukwu. I think he's a South Shore guy. He looks the part. I've seen Jeff Reynolds fight. He's at number 3. He fights out of Triumph with, you know, Dennis Olsen and some of those guys. He's legit as well. And Haler obviously has only got 1 fight, but I think he's getting ranked at 4th, more so in terms of potential and where he's training and who he's training around. He hasn't been very active, so not sure what's going on with that. But, we'd like to see him back in there because he's got the wrestling base, and we all know that is, probably the most important aspect of being a successful MMA fighter.
Well, he did have a fight
That's
scheduled for Cage Titans, and that fight fell through. His opponent, like maybe a couple of weeks out, fell through. So he has been looking for fights. He's looking to stay busy, but it just luck hasn't been on his side.
Well, that's the problem with some of these divisions being not so deep in New England. It's hard to make these matchups. It's just there's no one to fight at 85, really.
Exactly. I mean, that's, there's not much to talk about here. We don't see much going on. I mean, it's Kimball, I think, has been probably the most active out of all of them. I think he's got a couple of fights recently. His most recent one being for Cage Titans. So, yeah, it's tough. We got to get this division going. How do we do that?
Yeah. And I don't think Kimball ever makes it down to middleweight. I've seen him recently. I don't think he ever fights lower than light heavyweight again if he fights again. I can say that because his sister is my wife's best friend, so I know them on occasion. And yeah, I don't think he's making it down to 85.
Well, he is on the light heavyweight list too, is he not?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
then. So your prediction is probably 100% accurate right there. Oh, my God. Here we go. So is he from Maine? Is he a Maine dude?
Yeah, he actually went to high school at Marshwood High School in Elliott, Maine, where I graduated. He was a couple years behind me. His sister, it's weird. Like, they were on my bus in middle school, junior high school. So I've known Steven for quite a while.
Awesome. Well, here we go. That same dude on from South Shore who this was the guy that I was talking about. His last fight I think was in November of 2018. So he's going to be falling off the list. Definitely, most definitely, unless he gets in there and fights again. But Yuri Panfarov, this dude is a future champion, I think. This kid is legit killer. He's also got a boxing background. He fights with Andrew. How do you say his last name? Cottarelli. Yep. Calandrelli. Yeah.
I get him and Remo's last names mixed up. It's
yeah.
A bunch of Italian names down there near Providence.
So let's talk a little bit about this. I know 3 or 4 of the fighters. I know Daniel Mola, who just fought Mr. Jacobs there from Lausanne's camp. A great fight there. I mean, Jacobs had him in danger and back and forth. You had a judo master against the Brazilian black belt, right?
Those are the guys that I had circled on this list too, Steve. That was such an awesome fight. Definitely the tale of two styles there. To look at these two guys on the street, if you had to choose a sidewalk, you'd probably choose Andrew Jacobs' sidewalk over Daniel Mola's if you were walking down a dark alley.
Yeah.
Andrew Mola is a beast. Daniel Mola is a beast. But Andrew Jacobs hung in there with him, tested his chin, but it was just a matter of time before Daniel got I believe it was a toe hold or something along those lines, got to the mat, where he thrives. Daniel also has the distinction of training with Mr. Tyler King, who we talked about earlier. So these guys are two BJJ specialists that are training together, two heavyweight guys, light heavyweight guys in that area. So these guys can definitely feed off each other.
That's dangerous to have a black belt, big dude like that who's dangerous, who could take some shots. He took some damage from Jacobs, and he weathered the storm, and he looked for that limb, which he looked for basically the whole fight. You knew he wanted that was his game, to get him down. And you saw Jacobs toss him a couple of times too, but we didn't want to have anything to do with getting on the ground with him. And when it finally hit, Daniel took a little hold of that leg, man, and it's tough to get off a light heavyweight when he's got all his limbs on that one limb of yours.
Yeah, that was a great fight. Mola impressed me. Was that his first fight? Yeah, it was. And it was, to see what he did in that Cage Titans cage was pretty impressive. So he's 4 and 5 are definitely two to circle on this list. I've actually never seen Yuri fight live, but he's got a legit record and has fought some pretty solid guys. And then Vermont pretty much owns the bottom half of this list, and I don't know much about those guys at all.
With the exception of Ben Murtiff, who trains at First Class MMA with John Rayo, and I think this guy could be another guy. If you get Yuri turning pro, I think Ben Murtiff could make his way into the top 5 here with another victory. I think he plans on coming back to NEF and fighting as soon as that allows. So I look for Ben Murtiff here to start climbing these ranks. He's 3-0, I believe. Good dude. Trains with John Rayo. I've met him a few times, talked with him. I think he's going some places. He's a big dude.
So Lars, you mentioned we don't know either. Like some of these guys, from like 7 to 10. A lot of them are Vermont fighters. Where are they fighting from? Fight Night Promotions and Donnybrook. Like, what is that? Is that the promotions they do most of their work at?
Yeah, those are the two promotions up in Vermont that most of these guys fight for. They're actually supposed to have been a fight this Saturday for Fight Night Promotions, and that got nixed kind of last minute. Some drama going on there, but I'm glad to see that these guys in Vermont are getting fights. You definitely want to make sure they're taken care of and they're safe and they're doing the right, protocols and whatnot. Vermont is not regulated by the state. So, but we'd love to see some of their better talent, come down to some of the bigger promotions and test their skills, because you hear a lot of chirping, from the Vermont guys getting disrespected on these rankings. But the bottom line is that the guys who are higher in the rankings than them have fought better competition in bigger promotions. And a lot of us have seen them a lot. We haven't gotten up to Vermont too much, and that's one of our goals, is to get up to Vermont and see some of these guys in person. So it's not, obviously, once you get up to these heavier weight divisions, it's not super deep. But all it takes is a guy like, Yuri Panfarov to make his mark on the next level and make us all proud. So it's, outside of Yuri, 4 and 5 are definitely two to watch, and 6 as well with Murtiff. And then hopefully we can catch some of these, bigger Vermont guys here in the near future.
Excellent. Well, I give Yuri, I say in 2021, he's going to be pro very soon, but in 2021, big things for that kid. He's great on the ground. His hands are solid, and he's a big, powerful dude. And he trains at a fabulous camp. So I like the kid. He travels all around the world, and he's very I don't know. He's just a really good kid to talk to, and I would like to see good things out of that kid. So all right. So our last, we did cover the women's amateur last show, I think.
Yeah, we did.
We were all them. All right. So let's go to heavyweight, and we can call it a night. And this is another tough one. Same thing. You got some Vermont guys here. They're eating the moose up there. All beef all the time.
All Ben and Jerry's all the time.
All Ben and Jerry's all the time.
I don't think they believe in cutting weight in Vermont.
All right, so guys, Daryl Andrews is watching. How nice. That's one of the only names I know on this list is Daryl Andrews, who fights out of South Shore, who made his amateur debut at the last NEF show, which he was supposed to fight at the Cage Titans show. That was when was that? In April or whatever. So let's go through some of these. I know one of them, but I know another one just by seeing online today or yesterday. Fight Night Promotions owner. He fights too?
Yes. Yeah, Randy Fellion is their Fight Night Promotions promoter. He's like 11-13 as an amateur fighter. He's a grappling guy. He's fought a bunch for his own promotion. He's fought a bunch for some other promotions, but yeah, 22, 23 fights as an amateur. So he's on this list.
Is his brother the Afro kid?
No, but they hang out. I don't believe they're related. But
It's Vermont.
my dad's from northern New Hampshire. This is northern Vermont.
Come on, they're related somehow. Oh my God! All right, so he's Fight Night Promotions. Has he ever fought for Donnybrook?
I don't know. Those guys got some drama going on. So if he did, I don't think he will be fighting there again.
All right.
Yeah.
All
But,
right.
I don't know. They're pointing fingers up there about who's dropping a dime on who, and
Yeah, it happens between promotions sometimes. You know what I mean? It happens. All right.
So I had two guys on this list I wanted to discuss real quick.
All right, cool.
Everyone knows that I really like the guys from First Class MMA. So Bryce Bamford, number one, first class guy. That's pretty cool. And then I remember Max Lombardo from Premier FC. He beat the brakes off Gage Capon. Gage was a Vermont guy who came to Massachusetts to fight Max. And Max was supposed to return the favor and go fight for one of the Vermont promotions. But it looks like that's going to go by the wayside. But Max Lombardo, I think he could do some stuff here at heavyweight in the amateur ranks.
Excellent. Wow. I mean, you got two guys. It's tough when you're ranking guys and they're only 1-0. You know what I mean? That shows you how thin the pool here is at heavyweight and light heavyweight and some of the other divisions. But I like Darrell Andrews. I mean, just from what I've seen and coming out of the camp that he is, anyone that trains with Manny Bermudez, Joe Giannetti, they're gamers. They're getting really great work there. The kid's a heavyweight. He made his amateur debut at Neff. He basically destroyed the guy for 3 rounds, knocked the guy down, and just grappled the hell out of him with a lot of ground and pound. And impressed me. I mean, for a heavyweight and to move like that and have also a pretty dominant ground game like that and to be able to move like that, for a big dude, man, I was impressed. And, especially a guy from South Shore that I'm probably familiar with. I had my eye on him, and I got to interview him, and I kind of grown to like the kid, even though he's 1-0. I got to keep my eye on him, and he made the rankings at, number 6, being 1-0 and a heavyweight.
Yeah, this was obviously these are certain weight classes. We were initially only going to rank the top 5 in light heavyweight and heavyweight. But we decided, you know what? I think we had 10 to 12 guys that were eligible to be ranked in both weight classes. And that was pretty much the entire division in the region for both those weight classes. So we figured, let's rank all 10. Let's give some people something to talk about. And, these rankings will change very easily based on some activity. And hopefully we'll get that out of these guys here in the later half of 2020.
Excellent. Well, guys, another hour and a half in the books here, talking rankings. All in all, Lars, what's it been, a week and a half? Has it been 2 weeks, or is it a week and a half since we released the rankings? How long has it been?
It's been a week and a half. Yeah.
What's the overall? What's the scorecard here? What's your take on it? I mean, I know you've been talking to a lot of people, and we've been seeing a lot of posts, a lot of shares, and a lot of people that didn't even know that these rankings were going on, and all of a sudden, boom, they're number 1, and they're back training and with a fire under their ass, man. So, what's the report card on New England MMA and their rankings?
Honestly, since we released rankings, the website traffic's been great. Obviously, this is what people want to talk about the most, and I think it's probably because we haven't had rankings in so long, but also think that these are legitimate. We've heard, many other people in New England MMA talk about these rankings, and most of them said they look pretty good. There's always going to be some debate in the rankings, but we should be proud of what we produced here. There was a ton of effort and a ton of data that went into compiling these, but they're accurate. We're getting a lot of chatter, and just think about if we didn't have this stuff to talk about right now, what would we be talking about? There wouldn't be any discussion about matchups. Boynton and Bissett probably aren't going on a CES podcast. Ross Hilton and Tyler King probably aren't chatting on Facebook. So it's generating buzz during a time when we have nothing going on, which is great because it's keeping people interested. It's starting to build some hype around these shows that are coming out, and hopefully these promotions can capitalize on this momentum and start matching these guys up and use our rankings when you're promoting these fights. Can't hurt. Everybody, there's a lot of fans out there who don't follow this sport as closely as we do, and when they go see a regional card, they a lot of times don't know who's fighting who. If they go and they pick up the fight card and they see number 1 versus number 2 or number 1 versus number 4, they're like, oh, that could be a really good fight. Even the casual fan will benefit from having a number next to these guys' names. So it's awesome. And this is something that I think we needed. It's obviously creating a lot of buzz. And the goal of this was to create that buzz and to get people talking some shit and wanting to get some fights. And I think that's what we're getting right now. So I couldn't be happier with how it's going so far.
Travis, out of you, anything?
Yeah, no, as many of you people that are probably watching this know, we were supposed to release our website around the Cage Titans event in early April. And that was going to be our coming out party. And, we decided that we couldn't hold on to what we had any longer. We didn't want to hold our hand. We wanted to show what we had been working on and what we had accomplished. And it was a little bit slow at the first couple articles released, the first couple podcasts and stuff. It started slow, but I think this rankings thing has done a lot to shine some light on our website, show the people that we're here to stay, and that we're doing this for the fighters. We're doing this for the fans and the promotions. This should be a tool in your tool bag when you try to promote yourself, both on social media, as a promoter, a fighter, a coach, anything like that. This should just be a tool in your tool bag, and we are happy to provide it for you, and we are happy that we're getting the traction that we are getting from this.
Excellent. Well, what we're going to be trying to do in the next, few podcasts until some action gets going, we can maybe get a couple of the fighters on, like I got you two guys on, and we can have them debate why one will beat the other, or we can maybe have 3 or 4 fighters on at the same time and see who wants to fight who, or get a mini tournament going, or just get the chatter going. I mean, like you said, these rankings got some fire under butts and got people kind of knowing where they are and knowing where they need to be or want to be, and who they need to take out to get there. So, anyone out there, you want to come on the show, if you're on these rankings, you want to talk about them, you think you should be above someone else, you want to fight someone because you want their spot, let's get you on here. I mean, it's easy. We're here every week, and
I think we need to get Tyler and Ras on the show.
Well, we talked about that. Well, we talked about that today. That we got to reach out to those 2 guys, Raz and Tyler King. You want to come on next Wednesday night, or some night that I can get you both on here. I'll get you in a group chat, and we'll get you on here, and we'll give you both air time to air it out. So we're here for you.
Yeah, that might be a tough thing to have them both on live, because Raz is so respectful and Tyler has no filter. So that would be, I mean, it could be cringe-worthy. It could be make for a great show, but I know Raz will come on here with the utmost respect for Tyler and what he has to do, and Tyler just doesn't give a shit.
Well,
that's what he's all about.
Well,
Tyler has his own need.
I can mute Tyler if he's getting out of hand, or I can put the Jeopardy time clock up
him
there.
Getting out of hand. That makes for a good show, but they're just 2 different guys on different ends of the spectrum, and it's not that Tyler doesn't have the respect for the sport, because he does. He's just a fucking goofball, and that's why a lot of people love him.
All right, guys. Well, that's what I'm working on next. But if we want to get anyone who wants to come on here, any 2 fighters, or you want to come on the show, you're on the rankings, you want to talk about your rankings, get in touch with me on Messenger. I can Skype you in now. I can message you in now. I know how to do a bunch of shit. Guys, I think I figured out how to have, I can hang up on you and have someone else call in and still keep the feed going. I'm learning little things as we go, guys. As we go.
We might need that when Tyler King comes on.
Yeah, we're going to have to reconnect. All right, guys. Last thing, any shout outs? Anyone you want to say thank you to? Anything like that before I let you go?
No, Jake, just thanks to the, everybody who's been chattering and giving feedback on the rankings. It's been well received and we love it. Let's get going.
Travis, anything?
As always, I'll shout out to my barber, Roland's Old School Barbershop in Kittery, Maine, and I'll shout out to the Canna Bio Group. Couldn't have met a nicer group of people over there at the Canna Bio Group. And a little message for these New England heavyweights that are getting together this weekend. It looks like Friday night. I'm going to be coming to crash your party. Chris Sorrow, Roz Hilton, Nick Gulliver, and Jorgen De Castro. I'm coming up to crash your fucking party.
Awesome. Take a fucking interview and do something down there with these guys. Get some video. All right, guys, I got to go because I got to work at 4 in the morning. I'm essential still. I'm still essential. And that's my story. So from the Room Podcast, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. It was a great podcast, man. We talked all about the amateur rankings, giving everybody love out there. Next week, I don't know who's going to be on the show. It could be Roz and Tyler King. It could be Roz. It could be who knows who's on next week. So we'll figure it out and we'll get out there. But make sure you join, follow NewEnglandMMA.org all over the place. It's all about
buy a t-shirt too. Let's go.
Yeah, we want to get new t-shirts. We want to get rid of the toilet ones and get other ones in there. So
yeah, the more you buy, the more we can print.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thanks so much for coming on. Don't hang up on me because I want to say bye to you before I let you go. All right. Later, people.